Okay, today we're going to tie parachute atoms. This is probably, well, I know it's my favorite dry fly, and it might be one of the best flies ever made. So let's go ahead and get going here. We want to get our thread tied in at about a quarter of the way down from the hook eye. That'll help us get our proportions correct and get our post tied in at the right spot. So here I just got a standard Firehole Sticks 419. This is kind of just your standard dry fly hook. And this is some Blue Dun 70 Denier UTC thread. We're just going to wrap all the way back to where the bend starts. It's about where the barb would be on the hook. And get the best tailing material. That's some CDL. Now the traditional atoms would have, you would take some Hackle fibers from a Grizzly and a brown cape and use those. But with CDL, you get great modeling in the fibers, and you're not having to mess around with trying to combine the two different types of fibers. So you can put some loose wraps on the CDL and then pull it to the length you're looking for, about a hook shank in length. And you can trim those off. Come up back to your spot up there, the quarter of the way down from the eye, and we can tie in our parachute post. So what I'm using, it's just this McFlylon. Just comes in a big clump like this. So it has a bunch of strands. So I just clipped out one strand. On this size 14, one strand seems to be what I like. I've tried going less, and I feel like it makes wrapping your hackle more difficult. I just tie it in on top with some tight turns, and then we can start working our way up. I found sometimes giving that post a twist will help. Because it wants to, like what it's doing to me here is kind of jump out of my thread wraps. So try not to put too much tension on that post unless I'm holding onto the top of it. So you can get some wraps and then give it some tension. Go back down and get some thread wraps around it. To get that in there, and there it's not wanting to move near as much. Tight wraps there around the base are really going to help that post not move. And then also how we end up finishing the fly is going to help that out too. But you're looking for roughly this dimension from the post to the hook eye, and from the hook up the post material to be about the same distance. So now that we're back here, back to the back of the hook, we're going to use our Superfine dubbing. Here it's Adam's Gray. With this pattern, you can make any kind of colors that you want. Bluing olive, make them bluing olive, or sulfur color, even a caddis color, all the way to more of your attractor patterns with like the purple haze, where you're using lots of different purple material. You could make it out of ice dub, or just purple dry fly dubbing. So a nice thin dubbing noodle that will let us have just a nice thin, tight body on this fly. We don't really need it to be a super thick bodied fly. Pretty much just dirtying up the dubbing or the thread and give it a little bit more than just a thread body. There's also lots of variations you can do with that body. If you want to make a quill body or something different, that all works as well. Now we're going to tie in our hackles. I just got a brown and a grizzly hackle put together, and we'll tie them in at the same time. I've seen these tied in a lot of different ways, and you kind of have to just figure out what works best for you. The main thing that you want is these hackles, when you wrap them around the post, to have the shiny side facing down. That's gonna let them wrap better, because the curve of the hackle won't let each barbule get in your way on each wrap. trim out the butts of those hackle. Yeah, looks like that'll be fine. And get those cleaned up. Ending up there at the hook eye. Get a little more dubbing on so we can finish off the front of this fly. There. Let's see. I just need a tiny bit more right there to finish. Looks like I have a little indentation right underneath that wing post. Good. Okay, now we're ready to wrap this hackle. And sometimes it likes to fight you a bit, but for the most part you can get it to lay fairly good. So we want to kind of pull those down, kind of kink that stem on those. And there we go, we got it oriented correctly. We're gonna get about 3 turns. And the first one is probably the most difficult, to make sure that nothing spins on you. This one's definitely fighting me a little bit. Try to get this last turn right down there. Now my thread is around the back. I'm gonna take it around between my parachute and the top of that hackle, and that should lock those in place. And here is where you kind of decide. There's a couple different ways to finish this fly. I could try to pull this post back, get my thread up around the hook eye and finish it. I could whip finish around the post. Or one thing I've seen is getting the super glue out, getting some super glue on this thread. You can see the little drops of super glue on it, and then just making some more turns around the post. I probably had a little more super glue on there than I needed, but that's all right. Finish back there behind. And then you can just let that set up. Which, if you've ever gotten super glue on your fingers, you know it doesn't really take that long for it to set up. So now we can come in here and trim these butt sections out, or the tips of this hackle. got a few trapped fibers down here. I'll just trim those as well. And that gives you a real nice, clean tie-off point. And then you can reach in and cut off that thread. And then the last thing you can do is kind of get all that post material together and trim that off wherever you like, really. If you want a longer post, shorter post, up to you. And there is a Parachute Adams. Can be real fun, easy tie to fly, catches tons of fish. So if you liked this video, go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe, and look for the next one. Thanks.